Hope you are doing well. Today, horror incident about unseen entity or demon. This is the story of Anthony. Anthony lives in a big house with 3 floors. His grandparents live on the first floor, his uncle on the second floor, and Anthony's family on the third floor. The uncle's part of the house has some spooky things happening. People feel uneasy there and say it's haunted. Anthony's uncle often hears strange noises. Sometimes, when his uncle takes a shower and makes noise, he hears the same sounds coming from his bedroom, even though no one else is there. It is as if an invisible person is copying his every move. This makes him feel very scared. One hot summer day, Anthony's uncle was trying to cool down. He turned on the air conditioner, but instead of cool air, bats came flying out. They fluttered around the room, making the place feel even more haunted. The family managed to chase the bats away, but the memory of that day stayed with them, making the house seem even creepier. Another strange thing happened when Anthony's uncle was sleeping. Someone in the family called him, but he was too tired to respond. However, someone answered in his voice. The family member was confused because they knew the uncle was asleep. When they checked, he was still lying in bed, snoring away. Who answered? It was a mystery that added to the spooky atmosphere of the house. One evening, while Anthony's uncle was eating dinner, something very scary happened. A dark shadow suddenly appeared in front of him. The shadow was tall and seemed to move on its own. Anthony's uncle was frightened, but when he looked again, the shadow and his food were gone. He rubbed his eyes, thinking he must have imagined it, but the food was truly missing. This incident made him believe that the house might really be haunted. One day, Anthony's cousin came to visit. The cousin did not believe in ghosts and laughed at the stories. To show how brave he was, he knocked on a cabinet and said, "Come out." Ghost soon after, his cousin got very sick and took a long time to get better. The family was worried and started to believe that joking about the haunting had angered the spirits. Anthony's grandmother also has a scary story. When she was young, she climbed up to a high place in their house, which was not allowed. There, she saw a strange figure kneeling down. When it turned around, its eyes were red. She got so scared that she fell down and got sick with a fever for a whole week. Even now, when she talks about it, she shivers with fear. In the uncle's room, there was an old mirror. This mirror had been in the family for many years. Anthony's uncle always felt uneasy when he looked into it. One night, he decided to cover it with a cloth before going to bed. As he was drifting off to sleep, he heard a faint whisper. Look at me. He was too scared to uncover the mirror and stayed in bed, shivering under his blanket. Every night, Anthony's uncle hears footsteps in the hallway. The steps are slow and heavy, like someone is dragging their feet. He gets out of bed to check, but no one is ever there. He even tried leaving a light on in the hallway, but the footsteps continued. The sound made it hard for him to sleep, and he started feeling very tired during the day. One winter night, Anthony's uncle was reading a book in his room. Suddenly, he felt a cold hand touch his shoulder. He jumped up, but no one was there. The room felt icy cold, and he could see his breath in the air. He quickly left the room and didn't go back until the next morning. Another spooky event happened when objects in Anthony's uncle's room started moving on their own. Books fell off shelves, chairs shifted position, and once, a glass of water slid across the table. These events always happened when the uncle was alone, making him feel very scared. One night, Anthony's uncle heard the sound of a baby crying. The crying was coming from the attic, but there was no baby in the house. He gathered the courage to go and check, but when he opened the attic door, the crying stopped. The attic was empty, but it felt very cold and dark. He quickly closed the door and went back to his room, feeling uneasy. There was a tall old cabinet in the uncle's room. Sometimes at night the cabinet door would creak open on its own. The uncle would close it, but soon it would open again. One night he decided to lock it, but even then he heard scratching sounds coming from inside. It felt like something was trying to get out. He decided to move the cabinet out of his room the next day. Anthony's uncle often saw a shadow on the wall. The shadow didn't look like anyone in the house. It had a strange shape and seemed to move on its own. Sometimes it would disappear for days, and then suddenly it would be back. The uncle tried to ignore it, but it always made him feel uneasy. Late at night, when everyone was asleep, Anthony's uncle would hear whispering voices. The whispers were very soft and hard to understand, but they sounded like they were calling his name. He tried playing music to drown out the whispers, but nothing worked. The voices would continue until he fell asleep. One day, Anthony's uncle started receiving strange phone calls. When he answered, there was no one on the other end. Sometimes he would hear static, and other times there was complete silence. The calls always came late at night, adding to the spooky atmosphere of the house. One night, Anthony's uncle saw tiny lights floating in his room. They looked like fireflies, but they were inside the house. The lights moved around, forming strange patterns before disappearing. He tried to catch one, but they vanished before he could touch them. One of the scariest events happened when Anthony's uncle saw a ghostly figure in his room. The figure was transparent and had a glowing aura. It stood at the foot of his bed, staring at him. He couldn't move or speak, frozen with fear. After a few minutes, the figure disappeared, but the memory of that night stayed with him. Anthony's uncle always felt an uneasy feeling in his room. It was like someone was watching him all the time. He tried to ignore it, but it made him very uncomfortable. He even tried sleeping in other rooms, but the feeling followed him. After experiencing so many spooky events, Anthony's uncle decided it was time to move out. He talked to the family, and they agreed that it was the best decision. They started looking for a new place to live, hoping to find a house that was free from ghosts and strange happenings. Finally, they found a new house and moved in. The new house was bright and cheerful, with no spooky feelings or strange noises. Anthony's uncle felt relieved and started sleeping better. The family was happy and hoped that the scary experiences were behind them. It's my advice, if you ever visit, remember to be careful around the river and the forest. For the spirits that are hungry for fear, always inquire about the house before moving. Keep yourself and others safe from any type of scary activity. Thanks for watching. Please like, share and subscribe.